Pritzker announced in part that during the duration of the gubernatorial disaster proclamation, the provisions of the Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 120 requiring or relating to in-person attendance by members of a public body are suspended. Specifically, 1, the requirement in 5 ILCS 120/2.01 that members of a public body must be physically present is suspended, and 2, the conditions in 5 ILCS 120/7 limiting when remote participation is permitted are suspended. Public bodies are encouraged to postpone consideration of public business where possible. On Friday, June 12, 2020, the governor signed PA 100-640, Senate Bill 2135, into law, amending the OMA to expressly authorize public bodies to meet remotely with the otherwise required quorum present at the meeting place during declared public health disasters such as those related to COVID-19. City Council meeting will be held remotely. The meeting can be viewed on Channel 9 for MediaCom customers living in Rock Island or on the city's YouTube channel, which is www.youtube.com/user/RockIslandIL/live. To participate during the public comment portion of the meeting or the public hearing, please join by phone at 605-432-8378 and use PIN number 923-499-491. Also, finally, in keeping with the governor's executive order, all voting will be done using a roll call vote tonight.
Very good. I'd like to call this meeting to order and have a roll call.
Alderman Clark.
Here.
Alderman Hurt.
Here.
Alderman Spaghettis.
Present.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Here.
Alderman Parker.
Here.
Alderman Poulos.
Here.
Alderman Geenan.
Present.
Mayor Tomes.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I want to make one quick comment. Ivory Clark, it's great to have you with us and involved.
Thank you, sir.
So I'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Thank you very much. Item 6, public comment. Is there anybody in the audience and or online that wishes to make any comments? If I remember right, *6 will unmute the phone. *6 will unmute the phone. Anybody out there like to make a comment? Or in the audience? My daughter's threat was, she threatened to call and make comments.
Sure.
All right, hearing none, we will move on. Update Rock Island. Item 7. 2020 Lincoln Park Concert Series. The 64th Starlight Review is back in Lincoln Park on Tuesday nights from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. July's Tuesday night lineup begins with Gary Wolfe on the 14th, the Night People on the 21st, and Troy Rangel and Friends on the 28th. Popcorn and soda, chips, candy will be available at our concession stand. The Quad City Botanical Center Echo Art Camp. Young artists ages 5 to 12 are invited to the week-long morning art camp to discover nature from its artist point of view. Create art from nature on topics including plant art, soil art, and water art. Have fun in the sun and explore different types of art mediums as you interact with nature in our gardens. This camp is July 27, 2020, through July 31st, 2020, from 9 a.m. to noon. Campers' artworks will be displayed at our Art in the Garden event, August 1st, 2020, and the artists will receive passes to attend their exhibit. All campers are required to wear a mask during the indoor and group activities, and everyone is encouraged to wear a mask in the outdoor gardens as well. Tell on Your Neighbor Award. Each year, residents of Rock Island are encouraged to tell on your neighbor by nominating the yards in their neighborhood that they find to be the most appealing or the most improved. Digital photos of the nominated yards are required with the nominations, but please do not go on private property. Send the photo and address of the nominated property to the Community and Economic Development Department via email to douglas.catherine@rigov.org. That's DOUGLASSKATHRYN@rigov.org. For questions, call 309-732-2905. Nominations will be accepted through August 9th, 2020. The City of Rock Island's Beautification Commission will review all entries, and awards will be presented at the August 24th City Council meeting. That's all I have for tonight. Then we have item number 8.
Minutes of the June 22nd City Council meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes as printed.
Second, Spargettis.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Swanson,
Yes.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Clark,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt,
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis.
Yes.
7-0.
7-0.
Motion carries.
Item number 9.
Presentation of the Firefighters Pension Fund and Police Pension Fund preliminary actuarial valuation results for January 1st, 2020, and the assumption discussion.
So, Tim, there's a different presentation for this first one. You're one ahead of me. So while Tim's bringing up the presentation, I do have a few comments to make. And on the call tonight, we do have personnel from Nyhart Consulting, which is the vendor that the city uses to provide the GASB 67 and 68 reports for the audit. They also provide the valuation for the police and fire pension funds and help us with assumptions that determine what the employer contribution is for the city. So we will have Scott Gavin and will be on the call, and also Heath Merlack. So today's presentation is a regular event, so this is nothing new per se. What we typically do in one meeting is go over the valuation of the pension funds as of the prior January 1st and talk about, given the assumptions, what our employer contribution will be for the next budget year, 2021. So with that being said, I see this process as kind of a bridge. It's a bridge between the audit, the 2019 audit, which we had presented to us last meeting, and the 2021 budget, because our pension contributions are determined and are a big part of the 21 budget. But it's also a bridge between us as an employer and the employees, our public safety employees, which we are contributing to their pensions, which they earn, and the benefits that they earn. So this is really an important step that we take. So many inputs go into an actuarial evaluation when we're working on this portion of the audit. And Linda Barnes, I do believe, is on the call, our accounting supervisor that works in the finance department. We provide a ton of information to Nyhart Consulting, information about our current employees, what they make, what they made last year, what they made this year, their age, how long they've been with the city, whether they're married or not, because that impacts future benefits and is part of the calculation. And also very similar information related to our retirees. How old are they? What is their marital status like, et cetera? And what is the total of contributions that these employees have made? With that, we also have to provide assumptions to Nyhart to use for creating the valuation. And those are the big things that we talk about as a policy setting board and management of the city. And that's assumptions we're using for interest rate, payroll growth, salary growth, mortality rates, and such. And so sometimes those assumptions do need to be adjusted. And with that, a few years ago, we did go through an assumption study. And what we have tonight, before I turn it over to the presentation, is you can see on the face of the memo on the screen that's up right now is we do have a 9-year history of what the employer contributions have been for police and fire combined, so 2011 to 2019. And 2019 being the levy that was adopted this past December that is being collected right now. The next couple of pages, just to kind of explain what this is, because this can be a little confusing. In a way, this is a policy statement, an internal policy that is presented to City Council the last 3 years. And the next meeting, probably the July 27th meeting, I will be updating this policy document to represent the 4th year of assumption changes. So when we did do that assumption study a few years back, there were recommended assumption changes that needed to be made, and the impact of making all of those assumptions at one time was too great for the city to finance at once. And so the solution was to incrementally adopt the assumption changes by changing them a little bit every year. And so what this document does is kind of memorialize what we've been doing and how things have changed, and kind of helps to explain on that first page one of the reasons why we see the employer contributions changing over time. So this is last year's memo that council approved. And just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that we're talking about. And so at the next meeting, I will have this updated as a result of the presentation tonight. So with that, I am going to forward the slides to the presentation. And Heath or Scott, are you on the call?
Yes, can everyone hear me? This is Scott.
Scott, we can hear you. And can you see the screen that I have?
Yes, I can.
Very good. So I will turn it over to you, Scott.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining. And I will try to go through this somewhat quickly, but if there's questions, feel free to interrupt me. Feel free to stop me, and I'm welcome to answer questions. So let's go forward to the slide after this. This is certification of our work, part of the actuarial standards of practice. This slide here, then, we're talking about just a brief legislative update. As many of you may know, there was a public act signed into law effective January 1, 2020 that did affect the police and fire pension plans. The main reason for it was to consolidate the funds, the assets that they hold. Those have not yet taken place. That consolidation has not yet taken place, but it is scheduled to occur over the next 2 years. But there are different provisions of the law that also affected the individual benefits. So Tier 2 benefit increases, and for those of you who are unaware, Tier 2 is anyone hired after January 1, 2011. They have a different benefit structure than those who were hired before. So Any personnel, fire or police, who was hired after that point would have Tier 2 benefits. And the provisions of this law basically increased their benefits, mainly just to kind of keep up with more benefits that are by law federally. But essentially, there was a reduction in their final average of salary. So rather than taking their average salary over 8 out of the best 10 years, it's now 4 out of the best 5. So as you can imagine, that's going to increase the salary that is factored into the calculation of their benefits. Then there's also increases in the index, the interest that is assumed, the rate that's the inflation for pay limits. There's a pay limit on the benefits, the pay that can be used for calculating the benefits. That limit used to be the lower of CPI or 1.5%. Now it's the lower of CPI or 3%. So that's leading to higher benefits for these participants as well. Again, it went effective January 1st, 2020, so there's an immediate effect to the plans, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. However, for now, the local boards do retain authority over disability, retirement, and survivor benefit, basically the administration of the plans. There's a few other things that need to be settled operationally, and there's a task force that the governor had put together. The first step was to work on this consolidation of assets, but there are expected task force recommendations in the future. We're not sure when, but at some point in time, there will be recommendations on administrative, audit, and actuarial consolidation and funding policy. So potentially changes to all of this, but that's later on. Regarding the assumptions, as Stephanie mentioned, we're kind of on I might almost call it a glide path or a place where we're smoothing in assumptions. We knew that several years ago we wanted to bring assumptions more in line with what the expected would be, more conservative assumptions and more realistic assumptions, I think maybe might be the best term. And so we've been moving down the interest rate assumption by 10 basis points, 0.1% every year for the last several years. So last year was 7.20%, and now we are looking to move it to 7.10%, just continuing along with that path. And as you can imagine, when you discount at a lower rate, you are going to increase the liabilities. So there's an increase. We knew this was coming, but you're going to see that there's an effect of that will increase the liabilities, what the benefits are worth. And then we also recommend the continued step down of the payroll growth assumption. That again was going down by 0.1% each year. And effectively what that does is it's used in the calculation of the required or the recommended contribution, and a lower rate means, again, a higher payment each year for purposes of calculating that contribution. This slide just is quickly kind of talking about benchmarking. How do the funds compare to others around the country? There was a study done by NCPERS amongst public retirement systems done last year using 155 state and local government funds, probably bigger funds than Rock Island, but still worth noticing or worth taking note of. The average funded ratio of the plans was over 70%, whereas Rock Island's fire and police are 31% and 39% funded, respectively. So those funds were in better shape, but they are still, it's worth looking at the assumptions that they use. So the average interest rate assumption is actually higher for those, which makes a little bit of sense if they have, better funded ratio, more assets to work with. But again, we're still looking at using a recommended assumption of 7.10%, a little bit lower than those. Amortization period, this is basically how long we expect you to get to a better funded position. Rock Island's using 21 years. The plans in this study were 22. So they're very, very similar to other plans in that respect. And then in terms of the expenses paid from the funds between administration and investment, 55 basis points is the average under this study. So again, a little over 0.5% of assets. And for fire and police in 2019, for Rock Island, the expenses were 40 basis points and 38 basis points. So in that terms, the expenses are, we're keeping the expenses down, or I guess the funds are doing a good job of keeping the expenses down. The next assumption to talk about is mortality. We essentially updated a couple of years ago to align with what the Illinois Department of Insurance was using. We wanted to bring to your attention that there is a new study based on public plans. The current assumption that we're using is more based on private sector mortality experience. This study that was done using public plans looked at public safety, so police and fire, also teachers and general employees, general government employees. It's called Pub 2010 because the middle year of the experience was 2010. So looking at 2008 to 2013, they called it Pub 2010, but it's actually a newer table, a newer study than the RP 2014 that we're currently using. And this middle chart kind of helps show basically the effects of it. If you were to move from the current assumption, and that's in the column of 2020 Rock Island, to the Pub 2010 for police and fire, basically what you would be saying is that you expect the life expectancy for your participants to grow by 3 years, to increase by 3 years. So someone who's currently 25, when they get to age 55, they'd be expected to live to age 85 under the current assumptions. But if we were to move to this new table, it would be 88. So again, this would mean greater liabilities, greater contributions.
And Scott, this means that we want to be teachers because they're living longer, right?
Over on the right, you can see the general and the teachers are even 2 years longer, yes, living 2 years longer than public safety. So, yes, for those who are teachers or no teachers, it's looking good for them. Hopefully they will be able to have their benefits paid, but yes, they will. It's looking like they're living longer. So essentially, real fast, Stephanie, back to the bottom of that slide, we're not advocating using that new table just yet. We wanted to bring it to the attention of the funds and the council that, again, there may be an increase in the benefit liabilities and the contributions as a result of this mortality change. However, again, the table that we're using right now was based on a study done by the Department of Insurance that did focus on Illinois plans in specifically. This new table is nationwide using police and fire from all over the country. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. We do expect that the Department of Insurance will do another study in 2022, or to be released in 2022, so in the next 2 years. And we anticipate that they would use some version of this table, but maybe not the exact one that results in a 3-year increase in life expectancy. So, we're not saying to use it just yet, but, keep your eyes open that in a couple of years we'll see, where it goes. There's a chance that it may not increase the liabilities. Forward. Thank you. So this slide here there's a lot of numbers. Essentially, this is kind of showing a recap of the last year's valuation for the fire fund, as well as 3 different scenarios for the current valuation. So the top part basically gives a summary of that funded percentage. How well funded is it? What are the assets? How much of assets do we have to cover the liabilities? And in general, you can see that last year it was 32.1%. The columns in 2020, there's, again, 3 columns. First column is using same assumptions as last year, but updating for the new data and new assets. So what actually happened during the year in terms of asset performance, and what also happened in terms of demographics, who retired, who came in, et cetera, pay increases, et cetera. The next column factors in those assumption changes that we've talked about, the interest rate and the payroll growth. So you can see there that the funded percentage of the plan dipped a little bit as a result of those assumption changes, as we would expect. Went from 31.9% funded to 31.6% funded. Final column is those Tier 2 plan changes. So those are the plan changes that are increasing the benefits for those hired within the last 9+ years. And it really doesn't have an effect on the funded percentage, still 31.6%. But as you look down towards the bottom half, and again, or now to mention, the bottom half is that recommended contribution, the calculation of the contribution. And essentially, by making those increases in benefits, we're seeing a greater normal cost, which is basically the cost of 1 year of benefits for the participants. So we're seeing an increase of roughly $14,000 there just due to those plan changes. So essentially, bottom line here, if you look at the first column, last year we recommended a contribution of $3.4 million. And now with these 3 changes, we're recommending closer to 3.79 million. Yeah. So that is fire. Again, we're expecting increases, but there's additional increases that, again, were out of the control of the funds. Some of those being those plan changes, and that plan change. For police, similar story. Now you'll notice that the funded percentage from last year to this year decreased by 0.7%. A lot of that was due to demographic loss. Three of the officers or 3 of the members retired during the year. That does have an impact on the liabilities, and so especially if they retire at maybe a younger age, it'll lead to an increase in liabilities. So that accounted for almost half of that decrease in funded percentage, but there was a loss, an asset loss as well, of about $333,000. So again, moving forward then, looking at the assumption changes, they increase the liabilities again. So you're basically dropping the funded percentage from 40.2 to 39.7. And then the Tier 2 plan changes, again, not really a change in the funded percentage, but they did increase the recommended contribution by about $20,000 just for those plan changes. And again, final story here, recommended contribution last year was under 3.8 million. Now we're looking at 4.2, almost 4.25. So a lot of this, again, as Stephanie mentioned, we take into account the demographics, the data behind it. The data really is what's driving our valuation. So this is just a quick summary of, what are the counts of the participants. In the fire fund, the top part up there is non-active participants. So how many retirees, how many people are actually receiving benefits or due to receive benefits from the fund. And that has grown somewhat steadily over the years. As people retire, they're living longer, they're staying in the plan, those benefits are being paid out. So we've increased from 91 to 101 over the last 5 years. Looking down at the actives, though, we've kept that group somewhat stable. It was 58 for several years, 2 extras this year. So you're seeing a little bit of an increase there to make up for some retirements as well. On the police side, Somewhat similar story, although maybe not as much of an increase in those non-actives from 105 to 113. And then on the active side, it's actually been decreasing. The police force that's actively accruing benefits has dropped from 83 to 78 over the last 5 years. And I think we can move on to the next slide, unless, yeah. So asset information. Here we have for fire and police basically a summary of the assets, and there's two different metrics that we use. The market value is basically, if you looked up the trust at the end of the year, what's the value of all the investments, all the cash, everything that's in there. That's truly like what the value is as of 1/1/20, or 1/1 of each of these years in the columns. And we're showing 2018 through 2020. The second row then under each of these is the actuarial value. We do a smoothed value. Basically, we smooth in gains and losses over 5 years. Which basically what that does is it helps, avoid too much volatility, fluctuations in the markets. And we use the actuarial value for determining our contribution, or the recommended contribution. So that third row then kind of shows actuarial value divided by market value, the ratio. Basically, you can see in 2018, 100% means that they were basically almost the same. So the smooth value and the market value were basically the same. If those of you, if most of you will remember that 2018 was actually a really bad year for the markets. So as of 1/1/19, the smooth value, that actuarial value, was 8 or 9% higher, 8% for firefighters and 9% for police. So 108% means that the smooth value was 8% higher than the market value as of 1/1/19. For 2019, then, moving to 1/1/20, we've actually reversed that. Assets did really well during 2019. So now you're looking at a market value higher than the smooth value. The smooth value is actually lower than the market value by 1% for police, 2% for fire. And you can kind of see the metrics then below that. We do the rates of return. So for market value, again, in 2018, the firefighters fund returned a negative 3.9% on a market value. Then this year, now it's returned, or I guess 2019, it returned 17%. So you kind of reversed that loss that had occurred the year before. But then the final row in each of these shows you the actuarial value return. So that smooth return, again, is less subject to these fluctuations. For the year ending 1/1/18, it was just over 6%, 4% for the next year, and now 6% for 1/1/2020.
Thanks,
Any questions
Scott.
on that? Oh.
On the next two slides are just referring to the differences between these reports and the ones that we see in the audit, or that we saw the totals in the audit, just kind of explaining the difference. I don't think we need to go over those in any specifics, unless, Scott, there was something you wanted to mention on those.
Just that, if you're ever looking at the GASB accounting, what goes on the books versus what we're recommending, there's a difference, and in this case, it's a pretty sizable difference for a few different reasons.
Yes. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Did we learn a little something? I know I learn something every time I go through this every year, and I've been doing it for 17 years.
You have a question?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I suppose the question would be to Stephanie, but maybe our friend from Nyhart. So Stephanie, you and I have discussed in the past about other post-employment benefits, right? OPEB. At the time when we last talked about it a year or two ago, looking for any other guidance from other communities as to whether they're setting up like a trust fund or something like that to fund OPEBs for these pension plans. Have you seen anything about that? I mean, are we accounting for the additional expenses for other post-employment benefits that these pensions are paying, or is that another gaping wide hole
So OPEB isn't so much pensions paying it, it's the cost of our health care and other benefits that we might be providing to pensioners, stipends, and that sort of thing. So OPEB is reported as an expense in our audit and on the financial statements of the enterprise fund. So we do see that, and it is continuing to grow and will continue to grow. And we could set up an OPEB trust fund, and I did meet with a vendor in January to get some information on it. And of course, he wants us to do that.
Sure.
But it takes funds to set aside, and they would then therefore be restricted and unable to be used for the operations of the government. So that's something to weigh. If we were ever to have a windfall and have, windfalls are a good opportunity to take care of one-time things, that would be something that should be on our list of something to do to set up a trust. There aren't a lot of governments that have done so. There are some, but not a lot. Not this past audit, but the audit before that, I did talk to our auditor, Jamie Wilkie, about it, and they haven't seen a lot of their clients set up an OPEB trust. So it is something to be mindful of, much like, in the case of police and fire pensions, on the last page of that policy memo, it says, we should set aside more money and contribute that to the pension funds. And last year in the budget process, we had carved out some money, and as part of the balancing, we weren't able to achieve that. So, I would say if we had extra funds, this is where we would put it before OPEB. In my opinion, this is a higher priority, our police and fire pension funds, as you can see from assets in the range of 30% funded.
Okay.
But good question. Anything else? Scott, thank you so much for your time and appreciate all your work, and I'll be in touch with you after this meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate
Take care.
So I will be updating that memo and bringing it forth for approval at the next meeting, and that will then become our draft employer contribution for police and fire pension funds for the property tax levy in December.
So we got to come up with an additional $400,000 this year. Is that the idea?
Times 2.
Oh, right. Yeah, there's two funds. Oh, yeah. Okay. Problem.
All right. I think you're up.
The man behind the curtain can bring up the next one.
Yep. Item number 10.
Presentation of the financial management report for the first quarter 2020.
All right. So last meeting, again, we covered the 2019 audit. It did have some very high-level information related to our finances. And one of the things I want to do tonight, while we're focusing on 2020 with the first quarter report, is also take a step back and look at where we ended up in the major taxes that we continue to track for 2019, because you guys never got to see that report, and that's one that we look at a lot, and that's one I'm looking at a lot this year, pretty much every couple of weeks as we look to see where things head up for 2020. So, all right, so our state and local tax revenue analysis, we look at 9 major taxes. And so again, this is for 2019. And what I'm going to focus on, just kind of go sort of quick, because I know we spent a lot of time on pension assumptions, which I know is riveting. But here, I'm just going to focus on that actual column for each of these categories and compare it to where we've been trending at the 5-year average, and maybe just look at budget just a little bit. So for income tax, we finished last year at $4.1 million. This is higher than the 5-year average, which is which was a good sign. Our replacement tax, sometimes we call this PPRT, was at $2.8 million. It came in quite a bit higher than we had anticipated, and the 5-year average is $2.6 million. So just kind of a quick little note, you see some differences to budget here, and you're thinking like, Steph, were you really that wrong with the budget? And, sometimes we are wrong. I do tend to try to be conservative. And what I use when I'm budgeting general fund revenues is a combination of trends, combination of information that we might know about, such as this year, with the economy, and then also IML. So Illinois Municipal League provides what their forecasted revenues are, but it's sometimes a little difficult to take their revenue forecasts because they're operating on the state's fiscal year, which is not the same as ours. And so you kind of got to sort of extrapolate a little bit. So the next page, we have sales tax and our local option sales tax. So sales tax is the tax that our businesses remit to the state. Came in just shy of $3 million, right where we budgeted and right where the 5-year average is, but just kind of ticking up a little bit. Local option sales tax, that's our home rule sales tax. We collect that in the finance department. I take that back. We don't collect that in the finance department. The state does collect that, but they keep a little bit of it for themselves, and that's been a kind of a new thing the last couple of years, although with this next year they've pledged to take a little bit less of it, which we are appreciative. But that came in pretty close to budget and 5-year average. Use tax, this is kind of a sales tax, kind of a corporate tax. A lot of things flow into this, but this is where we've seen the internet sales taxes flow through the last year or so. And so this has been trending up over time, which has been really nice. We did finish 2019 with 1.3 million, and you can see this is quite a bit different than the 5-year average, which is about 900,000. The next two are the icky ones, utility tax and telecom tax. So utility tax came in at 1.8 million, and it continues to trend down, and even more so telecom, 705,000. And here you can really see the big difference. The 5-year average is almost 900,000. Food and beverage tax, this is the one we collect in the finance department, and so 922,000 is where we ended up, and it was a little bit higher than the 5-year average, but missed budget just a little bit. Gaming tax, 2019 was 4.2 million, so this is something to kind of keep in mind as we move forward. As we're working on the 2021 budget, we do have things that we use 2019's gaming tax for in 2021. So 2019 we collected 4.2 million, and this is less than the 5-year average. So overall, this is where I'm actually going to look at the budget, 20.9 million compared to 20.4 million. So we did finish from these 9 tax revenues higher than what we budgeted, which is nice. And so when you do look at the audit, if you look at the general fund statements, revenues came in a little higher. Expenses came in higher, but overall, the net was less than we had planned on it being. So that's part of what has helped us into 2020, and this is one of the biggest reasons why we keep reserves to help us get through these tough times, because there are a lot of governments that are really struggling, and they're borrowing money to make payroll, and we are not doing that. So it's a good thing. All right, so let's talk about this year. So 2020, this is the first quarter report. This is what we will call BC, before COVID. So this will look a little different when we get to the second quarter report, which will be around the corner. After we go through the schedule that you guys are used to looking at, I will just kind of recap some of the things that we've talked about in 2020, things that have happened since March 31st. So this is our income statement and cash balances for all of our funds. In some cases, there's a couple of or a few funds kind of rolled up together. I would say, by and large, the report, for the most part, is what we would expect or similar to prior years. The general fund will have a schedule where we'll look at the general fund departments a little bit closer. This is our biggest fund, and the one that's supported by a lot of the taxes that we have a concern for. But overall, that looks very close to where we were last year. You will see revenues lower at this time of the year. Some of it's because of the state has a delay in providing the receipts that are due. So if they collect money in January, we don't get it till March, and that kind of thing. So and then property taxes aren't distributed until beginning in June. So we do see a delay. On this page, some of the things that popped out to me that I wanted to point out was like motor fuel tax. You see, we didn't have any expenditures yet, at this time, which we normally don't because we do make that transfer later on. But we are seeing motor fuel tax decline this year. Flipping to the next page, this is our proprietary funds. I was pleased to see that our enterprise funds, waterworks, wastewater, solid waste, stormwater, we're all running at about 25% year to date at this point, which was good. The other thing I wanted to mention here would be in the fiduciary funds, pension trust funds. Since we just started talking about pension funds, you can see a revenue loss of 78%, at March 31st. So recall that markets really tanked in the month of March, and so this is a scary number to see. Before coming up here tonight, I did double check our positions as of today at the market close, and we're down 6% year to date. So it has improved, and some of that too is we continue to pay out pension benefits to the tune of $800 to $1 million a month. So that is that. So we're down 6%. So overall, it's right where we would want to be. Our cash position at March 2020 was $24 million. If you were to look up the report that I provided last year, the same meeting in July, we were at $18.5 million overall. So, overall a good cash position going into April 1st and beyond. As I mentioned, we will look at some detail of the general fund, and so general fund expenditures, which includes all of the departments, including police and fire and public works. We were at $8.2 million in expenditures. Last year at this time, we were at $8.4 million, similar percent. We were at 22%. The only department that's over that 25% benchmark is IT, but their expenditures don't necessarily flow evenly throughout the year, and they do have a lot of contracts that they renew at the beginning of the year. And then here's that state and local tax revenue analysis. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these. I'll flip through these. It's really hard to see where we're trending at a 3-month point. You see a lot of green cells, and that's because we haven't even gotten the cash yet. We know we're going to get it at this point, but we hadn't received it, and so for the most part, things are just trending up or down, below the budget line. But it's a little early to spend much time looking at this schedule because we are watching it very closely. The last two schedules that you have are our monthly investment totals. And as I mentioned, we had $24 million at March 31st. You can see the breakdown of where those funds were held. I often compare where we were, last year at this time. And again, like I said, we have more cash on hand than we did last year at this time, which was good. And you can see the impact on interest rates with the lowering interest rates after March. So, as I mentioned, just a quick little update on where we are for 2020. I last updated our general fund forecast on June 30th. Was hoping to have a little bit of an update today, but didn't have much information in there yet. When we met in the beginning of June. We did have brought a budget adjustment forward where we did reduce general fund budget by $1 million. About 3/4 of that was related to salary costs. A lot of that was actually in the police department because they do have some vacancies that they can't fill at any rate because of the academy not running and such and so forth and needing to get a list going. But about $700,000 of that million was salary reductions with holding positions open. So we did reduce the general fund budget by $1 million. At that time, I reported that my projected impact to the general fund for this year, assuming the economy was going to kick back up in June-ish, was $3.3 million. And so I do have good news to report that when I updated it at June 30th, that I changed it to $3 million. And the biggest area where that changed was actually sales tax. And there were just higher sales tax numbers than reported. I do have access to some detailed information, and I did run some analysis on some of our larger sales tax collectors, and some of them have collected more than prior years. So I'm at $3 million. That's assuming that we continue to move forward as projected, and I'll continue to update that and share that information. So that was good news. I was pleased to see that. Any questions for me?
Where are we at with reserves now? Are we 60 days, 90 days?
I didn't calculate that coming to this meeting. We do have sufficient cash. I do watch it daily. We have had to move some cash, but we're still doing okay. But I don't have that number today. All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Stephanie.
All right. Item number 11.
Claims. A, report from the Human Resources Department regarding payment to David Morrison, Rock Island, Illinois, in the amount of $17,522.26 for legal services rendered May 27th through June 29th, 2020. And B, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment number 6 to Green Space Associates, Davenport, Iowa, in the amount of $10,700 for the 2019-2020 sod replacement program, Project 2141, for services provided from November 11th, 2019 through June 11th, 2020.
It's A and B.
You cut out to begin with. Would you like to repeat that, please?
Yes, this is Mr. Geddes. Move to accept the reports and authorize payment as recommended for claims items A and B.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson?
Yes.
Alderman Parker?
Aye.
Alderman Poulos?
Aye.
Alderman Geenan?
Aye.
Alderman Clark?
Aye.
Alderman Hurt?
Yes.
Alderman Spaghettis?
Yes.
7-0, motion carries. And item C, report from the Public Works Department regarding payment to Walter D. Laud Incorporated of East Moline, Illinois, in the amount of $102,456.55 for the 2020 Sidewalk and Pavement Patching Program, project numbers 2140, 2142, 2377, 2411, 2434, and Parks Path for services provided May 22nd through June 26, 2020.
Swanson moves to accept the report and authorize payment as recommended for item C.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I need to recuse myself due to the nature of my employment.
Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Swanson?
Yes.
Alderman Poulos?
Aye.
Alderman Geenan?
Aye.
Alderman Clark?
Aye.
Alderman Hurt?
Yes.
Alderman Spaghettis?
Yes.
6-0, motion carries.
Item 12.
Claims for the week of June 12th through June 18th, 2020, in the amount of $406,113.47 the week of June 19th through June 25th, 2020, in the amount of $948,400.84. The week of June 26th through July 2nd, 2020, in the amount of $341,524.14, and payroll for the weeks of June 15th through June 28th, 2020, in the amount of $1,519,483.09.
Move to allow the claims and payroll.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spaghettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 13.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding the purchase of one raw water mixer unit from Philadelphia Mixing Solutions, Palmyra, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $19,855.97.
Move to approve the purchase as recommended.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Sorry. Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spaghettis.
Yes.
Excuse me. 7-0, motion carries.
Item 14.
Report from the Community and Economic Development Department regarding the sole source procurement of a new Niton XRF lead testing gun from Thermo Scientific Portable Analytical of Tewksbury, Massachusetts, in the amount of $15,665.
This is Alderman Geenan. Motion to approve the purchase as recommended.
Second.
Moved in second. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spaghettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 15.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding the purchase of fire hydrants, cut-in valves, and valve box parts, recommending the bids be awarded to Ferguson Water Works of DeKalb, Illinois for the fire hydrants in the amount of $37,105.80, to Utility Equipment of Bettendorf, Iowa for the cut-in valves in the amount of $37,557, and to Core and Main of Washington, Illinois for the water valve parts in the amount of $12,462.95.
Motion to approve the bids as recommended and authorize the purchases.
Spaghettis seconds.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spaghettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 16.
Report from the Community Economic Development Department regarding the sole procurement purchase of the Neighborly software platform in the amount of $15,600.
Alderman Spaghettis moves to approve the purchase as recommended.
Swanson seconds.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spaghettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 17.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding the bid to replace the fluid management systems at Fleet Services Division, recommending the bid be awarded to Rilco Incorporated, Rock Island, Illinois, in the amount of $29,056.59.
Swanson moves to approve the bid as recommended and authorize the city manager to execute the contract documents.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spaghettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 18.
Report from the Community and Economic Development Department regarding the sale of city-owned real estate located in the eastern 19.5 feet of 612 18th Avenue, parcel 101,415, PIN number 1603403,043, to Ms. Ida Bragg for $313 plus closing costs.
Move to approve the sale of the property as recommended, authorize the city manager to execute the sale agreement, and consider suspend the rules and pass the ordinance.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 19.
Report from the Information Technology Department regarding a 5-year contract agreement with CS Technologies, Eldridge, Iowa, for the Flex Enterprise EIS telephone service.
Move to approve the agreement as recommended and authorize the city manager to execute the contract documents.
Second?
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 20.
Report from the Human Resources Department regarding an agreement with CMN-RUS Incorporated, MetroNet, to establish a cable franchise in the city of Rock Island.
Alderman Geenan, motion to accept the current franchise agreement language developed by the city and MetroNet and direct the city manager to sign the franchise agreement.
Second.
Moved in second. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 21.
Report from the Finance Department regarding an adjustment to the calendar year 2020 budget, increasing the North 11th Street TIF budget, Fund 203, for calendar year 2020 by $24,363.
Clark moves to approve the budget adjustment as recommended.
Swanson seconds.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 22.
Report from the Finance Department regarding an adjustment to the calendar year 2020 budget, increasing the Community and Economic Development Fund, Fund 207, expenditures for calendar year 2020 by $149.
Motion to approve the budget adjustment as recommended.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 23.
Report from the Human Resources Department recommending rescinding City Resolution Number 14-2014 regarding Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund Form 6.74 and issuing an updated resolution to be compliant with IMRF audits.
Alderman Spargettis, moving to rescind city resolution number 14-2014 and approve the new resolution as recommended.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 24.
Report from the Public Works Department regarding a request from Mr. Tom Scott, 2901 47th Avenue, for water service outside city limits.
Move to approve the request as recommended and authorize staff to coordinate the construction, inspection, and connection to the city's water supply, and refer to the city attorney for an ordinance.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis. Alderman Spargettis.
Lose him.
6-0, motion carries.
Item number 20.
He's on there.
Is he on there? Item 25.
Report from the Traffic and Engineering Committee regarding a request for the handicap parking space in front of the Walton residence at 1029 17th Avenue. This item mistakenly said department. It should have been committee.
Okay. Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Clark moves to approve the request as recommended and direct the city attorney to prepare the necessary paperwork.
Second.
Swanson.
Moved in second. Is any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis. 6-0, motion carries. Report.
26, that's fine.
Sorry. Report from the Traffic and Engineering Committee regarding a request to ban parking on the east side of 41st Street between 18th and 20th Avenues.
Move to approve the request as recommended and direct the city attorney to prepare the necessary paperwork.
Clark second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis. 6-0, motion carries.
Item 27. 27. How'd that go?
Report from the Traffic and Engineering Committee regarding a report from the Traffic and Engineering Department regarding request to install a four-way stop sign at the intersection of 25th Avenue and 29th Street.
Alderman Swanson moves to approve the request as recommended.
Second.
Been moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to discuss it since I brought it forward. So this is a section in my ward, and I know they did a traffic study there in March, and it didn't warrant the traffic flow, but I would like to remind everybody that because of COVID-19, schools were not in session, people were not driving around then, so in all honesty, it was kind of a flawed report because normal traffic flow wasn't there. This is a route that I walk frequently. My neighbors walk it frequently. I've been almost hit twice. One of my neighbors was almost hit, and I've gotten multiple complaints from people about the cars flying down. There's no sidewalks. The road's very narrow, and it's just a dangerous place. And if we can slow the traffic down, that would be wonderful.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Yes.
Alderman Parker.
Aye.
Alderman Poulos.
Aye.
Alderman Geenan.
Aye.
Alderman Clark.
Aye.
Alderman Hurt.
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 28.
Report from the Traffic Engineering Committee regarding requests from the Quincy Davis of Greater Antioch Baptist Church for the purpose of placing their parking lot located at 929 14th Street and the parking lots on 10th Avenue between 14th and 14.5 Streets under ordinance control.
Clark moves to approve the request and direct the city attorney to prepare the necessary paperwork.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson,
Yes.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Clark,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt,
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 29.
Report from the Mayor's Office regarding the appointments of Tamara Felden and Steve Anditch and the reappointments of Margie Mejia Carabello and David Levin, Clayton Peterson, and Jason Lopez to the Human Rights Commission.
Alderman Geenan, motion to approve the appointment and reappointments as recommended.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson,
Yes.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Clark,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt,
Yes.
Alderman Spargettis.
Yes.
7-0, motion carries.
Item 30, other business. Is there anything?
This is all.
Go ahead.
Alderman's. This is Alderman Spargettis. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Are you there? I'm sorry for the poor connection if we have one. I just want to make a short public announcement that I plan on retiring from the City Council at the end of my term in May of 2021. That's coming up this next spring. If anybody's interested in running for Third Ward Alderman, I'm giving plenty of time or plenty of notice so that you can make your plans and get your life in order before running for City Council. That's all. Thank you.
Get your life in order. It's not a death sentence.
It's pretty close.
It's pretty close. There's good days and there's bad days, but so thank you once again. Well, obviously you're not retiring at this point, but your service emails and the heads up and getting people to be able to think about these things. So thank you very much, Alderman Spargettis. Anything else for the good of the cause?
Yeah, this is Alderwoman Swanson. I just want to do a huge shout out to the police and to the city, Public Works, and everyone for all the heroic stuff they have done in the past couple of months as our city has endured some financial stresses, some protests that are going on. There's been a lot in my ward, and I just really, really appreciate the attention to detail, the care for the citizens, and I really just want to say I'm very proud of our city staff and everything that they've done, and I just want to say thank you.
I will echo that, and also even this last weekend with the storm, it gives us a task that we don't expect sometimes. Both police and public works, fire department maybe had some false alarms or some serious alarms, I don't know, but those three agencies once again step up to the plate and have to work a lot of overtime hours, extra duties that they didn't plan on. So once again, they stepped up, performed, and for the citizens. Yes.
Could I request an update or a next step from the city manager or the mayor on the resolution? We recently, this past couple of days, we got the Where We Stand document from the Illinois police departments. I haven't heard what the next step is, right? So where are we briefly? Where are we going? What's next?
You want it? You or I? Either way.
Yeah, then the next step is now to begin some detailed discussions in some of those areas that require more questions and
Detailed discussions with
but there's a number of different
the
groups.
three organizations that we're speaking with.
Yeah.
Okay. Between this group of mayors and police chiefs.
Right. At this point, there is a group together. Once again, elected officials and the law enforcement's got together, and I lose track of time. We'll call it a month ago, but don't know exactly. So, and decided to try to be as coordinated as possible amongst the Illinois Quad Cities, feeling if there's going to be ordinance changes or policy changes, that we ought to try to be as consistent as possible. It doesn't always work, but from one city to another. There are some items on the agenda. Resolutions is one, but that is more city related, whether it be community based or community committee that would have to be dealt with, potentially, have to be dealt with individual cities. And that's, once again, working on the devil's detail and working with those individuals. But we're hoping within the next week or so that we get together with the mayors, city administrators, and the chiefs of each area with those groups in the room at the same time and begin even more diligent discussions going back and forth. There was a first release of some data. Some feel that it was the right answer. Some felt there was maybe just more questions. Is what you're going to have. Is you're going to some answers develop new questions, and so we are going to be meeting very shortly as a bigger group, and then as we see from there, we may have to break down into by cities or county, in the case may be. But once again, trying to make sure that we're coordinated, if that makes any sense. Yeah. There was some, obviously, as people saw, I guess, addressing, is that we were unresponsive. Right. East Moline, Rock Island, Silvis, and I think the county. Moline was the only one. Moline has had some individual conversations, and so they made the list of having some updated stuff. And that was due to a myriad of different things. I personally, and I talked to Thurgood about one of them, the issues, on last Friday evening. I apologize for not responding, at least saying I got the email, but we're working with this bigger group. And so I apologize for not responding that way. But the reason I didn't respond, call it an excuse, however, is because I was planning on, volunteered Reggie Freeman of East Moline volunteered to be the spokesman for the elected officials, and Sheriff Jerry Boosters volunteered to be the spokesperson for the law enforcement side. And so I felt that they should be doing the responding back and forth versus me, Randy, or Chief Van Huysen. So that's the reason the city did not respond. It wasn't that we don't care, don't want to, think it's all over with. We don't. If that helps add clarification, we still are in dialogue. It may take a little longer than what some of them wish. We did have, right at the time, there were some vacations of some people in 4th of July week that added a little complications to things. But we're trying to still work diligently with it. It is still a very important issue on everybody's table.
I appreciate the update and look forward to continuing on.
Yes. The last, I guess, if anything, and people can still bring things up, but I did send out a letter and some state information on social distancing and mask wearing and that sort of things. The state issued guidelines, along with a letter from myself to all the bars in the in Rock Island, once again reminding them that they need to take that social responsibility and continuing to work with those guidelines. Can't control them all, can't dictate it all. It's not a law per se, it's recommendations. And so I did reinforce with all of those, at this point, the bars on those issues. Relatively stern, I guess, but gave them the data. And, of course, I personally also continue to recommend people following those guidelines that we have. We all have slips, things it just isn't quite a habit for us all yet, maybe. We get casual and forget, but we do need to remember that we need to continue to try to get the positive test down. We are very fortunate at this point in Rock Island County to be doing better than most, and the state of Illinois doing better than a lot of them. But we can't rest and just saying, oh, we're going the right direction, forget it, let's just relax. We need to keep it up to stay in that right direction. We've had some few blips up, as people see, not to repeat, but so let's not get too lax. So thank you. I know Alderman Swanson has been pushing me for that, this also, so willing to listen to anybody's comments and whatever we can do. Any other comments? If not, we are at item 31.
Motion to adjourn to Monday, July 27, 2020.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Do we need a roll call for this too? I suppose it doesn't talk about it, but we'll do a roll call.
Alderwoman Swanson,
Yes.
Alderman Parker,
Aye.
Alderman Poulos,
Aye.
Alderman Geenan,
Aye.
Alderman Clark,
Aye.
Alderman Hurt, Alderman Spaghettis,
Yes.
7-0, motion
Homemade,
carries.
baby.
Thank you, everyone.